Hola, mujeres. Today's episode will be about healing trauma related issues as Latinas. And we're discussing this topic with a guest who has personally been impacted by unresolved trauma, leading to harmful coping mechanisms, toxic relationships, self doubt, and delayed success. Her name is Cynthia Peña, who is the founder of the Healthy Hotgirl Wellness, whose goal is to offer transformative tools, resources, and one on one coaching that guides women through their healing journey. Cynthia is also the voice and host of the Healthy Hotgirl podcast, a healing forward podcast dedicated to helping women embrace their healthiest, most vibrant selves. Additionally, Cynthia is also a yoga instructor whose mission is to create supportive community where every woman can glow from inside out. With that said, Cynthia, thank you for being with us today. We are super excited to learn about your focus and your passion for helping women through their healing journey. So, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having
Welcome,
me.
Cynthia.
I'm excited to chat more with you both and just get into the topic of healing. I love, collaborating with other, Latinas who want to also continue to develop and excel and thrive in their life.
Great. So, with that, we're just going to go ahead and dive right in because we have I know this conversation is going to be really good. I anticipate that already. So, let us start with asking you, who you are. Just tell us a little bit about you, your background, your inspiration, and why of becoming a coach to help women heal and empower them to break the cycle.
Yeah. For me, I think I've always, at my core been a lover and I've always been someone who's wanted to grow, who's wanted to be the best person that I could be. And, I've throughout my life I've been able to do a lot of different things, just trying to find my way. And right now I would say for me, like one of my core values is wellness, and that is at the core of who I am. So being mentally, physically, and spiritually well, I get to live that core value out right now in many ways. Like I'm an HR consultant, so I support businesses in West Michigan and beyond, helping with their organizational wellness. As a coach, I get to help women with their wellness. As a yoga teacher, I get to help women with their mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. And I think for me, I'm just always wanting to be the best version of myself and, wanting to just get out of survival mode and into thriving. I think that's at the core of who I am. And, I really just want to design a life I love, heal myself and heal my family lineage and my community.
That is awesome.
I was going to, the next part of the question, that's a little bit about me, but I think next part of the question is, what was it my motivation for healing?
Yes. Like what inspired you? Like that why?
Yeah, so my why is that, I was just born into a family with a lot of generational trauma and I have a lot of complex trauma. And so my family, both my mom and dad were born in the United States. My grandparents are from Mexico and, just born into a lot of alcoholism, a family that had, domestic violence, physical abuse, sexual abuse, coping with like drugs, too. Like my grandpa was a drug dealer. He went to prison. He got deported to Mexico. Like just so much has happened in my family. And I know that my parents, wanted to try to give me a better life, but I think that they were just unaware of a lot of issues that they had. And what doesn't gets healed gets repeated. And so, for me, like as a young child, I had parents who were like physically present with me, but they were never emotionally present with me. So a lot of like, I always say this, I feel like anger was my first learned reaction in life. And that was, that held all of my emotions under that. And it was like, for me, like what I was taught is that you show up, and no matter what, you show up mad, you show up angry, you show up sad, you show up hurt, but you always show the fuck up and you get shit done. And, you know, throughout my life, I experienced, um, you know, sexual abuse, emotional neglect. I have been in relationships that have had domestic violence. I grew up at in a community where there was a lot of just peer violence. Like, I got in a lot of fist fights growing up. That was just what was going on in my neighborhood. So, like, physically fighting other girls from a very young age. And then I became a party girl, and I was very introverted, but I guess I felt like this person who had to, like, become tough to survive in the world was like um kind of nurtured into me. And so, like, I became a party girl. I just ran from all of my feelings. I, became who I needed to become to survive. I was, I did become a part of, like, the criminal justice system. Like, I was, on probation from like 16 to like 19. I had, felt the target of, like, systemic oppression there. I had professional experiences where I was, like, bullied and then fired, and, like, so I've just had a lot of things, I think, in my life that it was either like, I'm going to let all of these experiences, like, eat me from the inside out, and I'm going to be a victim, and I'm going to be angry, and I'm going to be hurt, and I'm going to be, like, sad, and I'm going to be miserable. And I'm going to continue to internalize and externalize and create that experience for myself. Or, like, I'm going to, do I want to be a victim or do I want to be a victor? And, like, for me, it was like the latter. Like, I decided that I wasn't going to let all of these things that had happened to me overpower me. And I wanted to, have my next chapter in life was going to be, like, just hot girl, healing deep, making money, manifesting a dreamy life, healing all of this unresolved trauma that, some of it I didn't choose, but then some of it, I chose based on, like, just not knowing any better, right? That was part of my environment. And then I think all of those lifetime experiences really pushed me to say, like, I just deserve a better life than this, and I'm going to give that to myself.
Thank you so much for sharing that. To me, that was a lot. I was like, whoa, like I just want to, like, applaud you now, and such a blessing of how that you're here to be able to give that testimony and empower other women that, they don't feel alone, that there's also people that are able to get out of that. So with that said, it's I know a little bit before we started recording, it was like that's one of the things I asked John, like, I don't know, it's like, how do you personally realize that you needed to heal from trauma? Like, how did you manage to get that self-awareness to identify that trauma? And it's like, I remember when I wrote that question, I didn't know about all of this. So it's like, you clearly explained why, but was there ever a moment that you felt like that was supposed to be normal? Like you said, like, okay, that's just gonna be me. I'm gonna be miserable. I'm gonna be sad. Like, when was that moment that you felt like, okay, like, it's time for me to change this, and I do have the power and the resources to change it. Like, isn't it? I'm going to take all that's in me. So I know it was a long question, but basically it comes down to that. It's like, when did you realize that? Like, okay, a pivotal moment, and then how were you able to manage that self awareness?
Yeah. I'm going to lean a little on the cliche, like, you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I
That's
think
okay.
that was it for me. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was tired of feeling broken. I was tired of feeling sad. I was tired of, like, waiting for somebody or something to, like, come and make me whole. I would say, like, my wake up call was, like, slow and gradual. I mean, it was, like, slow, painful, and gradual, and then also there were, like, kind of two big defining moments that I can, like, relate it to. Um, I remember feeling like, just like my old tricks, they just weren't doing, they were just, like, weren't bringing me any, um, like, they weren't bringing me the peace, or, like, they weren't, like, helping me feel the way that I used to feel, like partying and, running away from things, like living for the weekends. It was just becoming exhausting. Like I felt like I used to lean on like adventures, drugs, alcohol, like partnerships, sex, like, partying with my friends, like all of that used to like feel like an escape for me. And instead of like leaving me feeling like satisfied, like I always felt hungrier. Like I always felt more empty. And then as I got older, like I felt like the contrast that I was like living was giving me anxiety, like physical anxiety, like my anxiety was starting to become debilitating. And then like on the professional side, like, going to work and having to assimilate and always being the only Latina or the only person of color in every single, job that I was at, like, and feeling like I had to code switch and, and be whoever they said was professional, whoever, they said fit into their handbook and their rules. And I just always felt really conflicted. Like I felt like I was just wearing so many masks. I was wearing a mask in my personal life and I was pretending I didn't care about certain things because at a very young age, I learned that asking for what I wanted and needed wasn't safe. It wasn't safe for me to tell somebody like, "Hey, I love you," or like, "I want to, be in a trusting relationship with you," right? Like I was not able to trust people at a very young age. And then professionally, I was told like being me wasn't professional, right? Or I had to be this person. So, like, that stuff was just exhausting, like being these two polarizing different parts of myself, and neither one of them were me. And so, like, slowly, I would start going out with my friends, and I would just like, it kind of started with me being like, I don't want to drink on Sundays. Like, I'm not going to drink on Sundays because on Monday, like, I have to go be this person and I can't be that person. And so it was like little things like that where I started kind of having boundaries with people or not wanting to go do certain things or, just not being available. But I still had habits to where like every 2 weeks or then every month as I was like making lifestyle changes where I would like going back to these old patterns. And then professionally, um, on the opposite end, it was like I was tired of like every organization that I went into, I was burnt out. Like it was like I wanted to come in, change this organization, do an amazing job, like create like such a thriving culture for both employees and leadership team, and like meeting these leadership teams that basically you wouldn't hold people accountable, like, weren't having the conversations that they needed to have, weren't being accountable. Like it was just discouraging and I was becoming like unhappier and unhappier at work. And so I had both of these like experiences just continually to change within me, right? Like I was tired of partying, I was tired of working at these organizations. Um, I had like two big, I guess, like pivotal moments for me. That was like one, I had went out and I had like a fling with like, had like a weekend fling with some guy. And I ended up being like super triggered. Like he had invited me to go to Detroit and he had somebody there like that he was maybe hooking up with and it really triggered me and I acted like so out of character and I was like so disappointed in myself. I'm like, why would I let this person who I don't even know like have me acting out of character because I'm so like hungry for love. And I'm like, I never want to allow somebody to have that much power over me. And then on the opposite end at work, I was so burnt out with all my HR jobs. I had gotten a new job. It was supposed to be a step up. They wanted me to grow into like a manager. They needed a manager for their HR function. And I walked into like this hot mess, organizational restructuring. I was dumped in with like two, um, I felt like I was misled. Like they were like, we don't really have an HR team. And they had two toxic people that were wearing those HR hats and they dropped me in there to like shake the tree. They knew these people needed to be let go. They knew they needed, like a new HR team. And they were like they wanted the tree to be shaken, but they didn't want to deal with the real consequences of addressing that behavior. And for me, I just don't do well in situations where people are like trying to force my back against the wall and basically like get me to do what they want to do. And that's what those girls were doing. They were just bullying me. And everybody saw it and nobody did anything. And if my back's against the wall, like I'm always going to come out swinging. And so like I stood up for myself. I advocated for myself. You know, and some things were like some conversations were had with these individuals. And I think for me, and I actually heard you guys talk about this in the last podcast with Hildy, like the Latina syndrome and like Latinas not knowing to say when we're burnt out or when we're done. And my body was like telling me at this work environment, like I'm such a strong I'm such a strong person. And then I know you guys references to having a, like Latinas have a strong pain tolerance. And I felt like my mom does, I do. And you just, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, you show up tired, you show up mad, you show up sad, you show up. And I just kept forcing myself to show up at this job that was like killing me inside. Like I was too tired to go to the gym in the mornings, like these little things that, you know, I was working late. I was more stressed than I was at my last job, and I was only making a little bit more money. You know, I was just getting burnt out, and but I was scared. I was like, dang, like I just got a new job. Like it takes a lot of work to get a new job. Like I wasn't ready to go and find a new job. And I was like, I can keep going. I can keep going. I can keep going. And I was crying on my way to work in the morning. I was having so many conversations with my managers. They were tired of listening. I was tired of talking. And, you know, for me, and I actually was fine, like gonna think about quitting. And they actually let me go before I was gonna quit. And for me though, it was like when that happened, I also was like, I felt like it was hard for me because I was like, I felt like my power would have been like admitting that that was like not a values aligned place for me, or admitting that I was tired or getting out of there. Um, and I think for me, like it all worked out how it needed to, like, because when you quit, like you don't get a severance or you don't get certain benefits that are available to you. So even though that was like really hard for my ego, like I think it worked out the best that it could. But I guess like even in that whole situation, like afterward, I was like, I don't want to give my power away. Like I feel like I should have advocated for myself more, or I should have like left when my body was telling me that I am crying on the way to work. Like all these things I was ignoring. And I think like both of those situations, right? Like I had a role though too. So what was my role? And that's always like for me, it was like, how could I have been better in those situations, right? Like, could I have at work maybe approached those situations a little bit more calmer? It was hard. It was hard to be poked at and then be like the one to have, you know, the one to have to show um you know, emotional stability. Like that was really hard for me. Um, and then, you know, like just in my personal life, like I was like, I'm choosing these, basically me, I guess. I'm choosing these people. I'm choosing these people in these environments. And I also have a choice here that I don't have to choose these people in these environments anymore. But I also need to identify like what the right people, environments, and values are for me. And at that time, I didn't know my values. I never knew my values my whole life. So my whole life, I was just like accepting whatever love, friendship, opportunities, community, connection that people offered me because I was just so hungry for belonging and love. Um, and I think after those two big like situations happen in my life, like I was just like, I have power here. I have power to choose my values. I have power to choose my environments. I have power to choose my partnerships. I have power to choose my friendships. I have power to choose what opportunities are right for me. And I'm not giving away my power anymore to nobody else.
Well, that was a lot, but great. Just because we're now learning, right? Like how you dealt with that and how you identified that at that point, like, no, this is trauma, like on your personal life, but also your professional life. I do have a question though that I just came up with right now before we go into the next question. But was this, I'm assuming it was this that kind of led you to create your own, go into your own journey of like, oh, I'm going to become a coach and I'm going to help other women that are, that have gone through, or, or have unresolved trauma, so that they can break that cycle. And I'm just going to provide tools and resources to be able to do that. But then at the same time, I'm also going to, create this podcast and talk about my personal experiences. And then I'm also going to become a yoga instructor and also help with this journey, healing journey, but also but physically as well. So was that all kind of like I'm assuming so, but like, can you talk a little more about like, okay, how did that lead you to that, and how did you decide to become this new person to support other women?
Yeah. So actually, my journey to want that had already started. So it was that all happened at like the beginning of the end of 2021 and 20 and then to 2022. And but I had actually started like waking up to like something not being okay with me at the end of 2020, I want to say. Like that was when I was like I wasn't really vibing like with my friends anymore. I was kind of starting to set those boundaries. um I had broke up with one of like a partner that I was with, who like we had a lot of fun together. I'll say that we were party partners, and but there was also a lot of like irresponsibility that was like weighing on me, that I was like doing a lot of caretaking. And so I had actually started working with a coach in April of 2021, and I started doing inner work, and that's where I realized like I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know anything about myself. Like when people would like ask, and that just became more prevalent. Like as I was getting my new job and I was talking to people, and they'd be like, "What type of books do you write? Do you like to read or whatever?" Like they were asking me these questions, and I didn't know the answers to them. And so I kind of just, it was like all these things in my life were like reaffirming that I didn't know who I was. And so I kind of was like so I had a moment where I knew something wasn't right. I knew I was disconnected with myself. I knew I wasn't happy, but I didn't know what to do for a really long time. I was kind of like figuring myself out. So there was like this period of time where I was working with a coach. I was trying to understand myself, spend more time with myself. I was starting to journal and read and meditate. And I always worked out. So like the physical part wasn't like super hard for me. But there was more to caring for myself and loving myself than just physically working out. So I had to like nurture this whole other area of my body, my mind, and my soul that I was missing. But then I was kind of on the fence with like, I would like go kind of back and forth, like, oh, this is satisfying me for a little bit. So like, I don't need to keep pursuing this thing over here. Um, and I remember even when I had started like my new job, the one that I had referenced earlier, was like the girl that I had worked with, her and I became like one of the girls who was hired to be new as well. You know, she just loved being at this organization. They were $1 billion company. They kind of let us do a lot. Like they had money. You know, they were really chill. They were really laid back. It was very different than the other environments that I had been in, with like limited budget. And she was like, you know, we get to do everything we want here, but we have no liability. We have no risk, right? And like I remember for her, she wanted that. And I remember for me, and this was my problem my whole life, like I was always okay or tagging along with what other people wanted for themselves. And I never knew what I wanted for myself. And so for a while, when I had that new shiny, sparkly, I always say, and like one analogy for me is like, I used to love chasing shiny, sparkly things. So I had my new shiny, sparkly thing that I was chasing, which was this job that promised me so much. And I was willing to work my ass off and get it. And I had put this like desire in my heart, like in the back seat, because I was like, they're going to give me everything I need, which is very rarely the case. Um, so, so there was like, again, me putting myself last and putting somebody or something else first, which I had been taught to do that my whole life. And then when those situations blew up in my face, like I was like, I am done putting everybody else before me. Like I love myself. Well, it took me a while to figure that out, but like now I love myself. Now I know that I am capable of taking care of myself and giving myself what I need, regardless of who or what comes and goes in my life. And that like God is my source. My job isn't my source. My partner isn't my source. My friends aren't my source. Like God is my source. And like, and like through him, like I can have everything that I need to like have a great life.
Great. That I kind of wanted to know how you, yeah, and that, I mean, that explains a lot. And you do, I mean, now that I see and everything you've said, um, you do a lot. I mean, for yourself, but also for the community now. So, I mean, it's to me, it's amazing how you went from, your experiences in the past, and your traumas to now being able to support other women that are going through that, but also want to heal and need support to do that. So one of the questions we also have here, though, that I think you sort of mentioned a little bit about like self-love and self-care. And it is one of the two of the main focuses we have in our podcast, especially, to empower women and make sure that they're taking care of themselves first, just because if you don't do that, how are you going to be able to fill in, like other people's cup? So I'm assuming that for what you do and for healing, like there has to be something along the lines that like reference self-love and self-care. So what do they relate, like healing and self-love and self-care, like, and how do you make that happen? Like what are some of the things that you do to ensure that those are like core within your journey?
Yeah. So both things relate. They're a part of healing, right? So self-love is the relationship that you have with yourself. So when you're healing that relationship with yourself. We can have no self-love for ourselves. We can have a lot of self-love for ourselves. Like there's a full spectrum of where we fall. Maybe there's certain parts of ourselves that we accept and others that we are ashamed of. And I mean, to me, it's like nurturing the relationship with ourselves is finding a way to love and accept all of the different parts of ourselves. And we have many parts of ourselves. We have, like our inner child. Like for me, like I've named my parts. Like I have my inner child, I have my teenager, I have my young adult, I have my higher self. Like there's so many different parts of ourselves. And it's really just developing like that self-awareness, that self-acceptance, and that self-love. It's like a continuous lifelong journey where we are just nurturing that one-on-one commitment to love and accept all of the different parts of ourselves. And then self-care is more of like the actual habits, practices, and activities that we do to nourish our body, mind, and soul, or like help us have a better well-being and have more happiness. And that is also a lifelong long process. And I think that the relationship that you have with yourself, so your self-love, is going to also influence the self-care that you want to provide for yourself. Like some people just think like self-care is like, I'm going to get my hair done, I'm going to get my lashes done, I'm going to get my nails done. And that was me. Like I grew up very superficial, I would say. Like all of my friends were very like nails, hair, lashes at a very young age. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but like there's more to caring for yourself than just your physical appearance. Self-care, there's also a spiritual and a mental side of that, right? So like me learning to understand my feelings, like what am I feeling, what is happening, being able to process and interpret them. Seeing, like, so for me it's like going to therapy, like working with coaches, also like other physical things, like not just working out but like relieving physical tension from my body, so like doing cupping, doing acupuncture, like doing all, like having paying attention to my hormones, and like having to help like resolve my chronic fatigue, like all of these other things, and like that go beyond just like your superficial appearance. And then like your spiritual health, like what's important for you, like I'm a Christian, but having a higher power or believing in something, doing things that light your soul on fire instead of doing just what society wants you to do or your parents want you to do or what's going to make you a lot of money or whatever. There's so many things that go into self-care beyond just like, luxurious gifts that you can give yourself.
I love that. And I love how, like, one of the things that we say a lot, investing in yourself is self care. And I love how you have invested so much in all the different, like, and all, like, there's a self care wheel. Like, I feel like you have invested in all 8 of those focus areas of self care. So I love that. And it's like, it's I'm not sure how old you are, but it's so I feel like you're super blessed that you're able to do it at such a young age. Because it's like sometimes you're talking to women that are 50 years old or 60, which there's nothing wrong with that. And it's like it's taken their whole life. So I love of how now with that focus of self-love and self-care, which I think that's why those what I think that's focus on that a lot because we have noticed that our woman in our life that were inspiring to us, that's not what it meant to them. Like especially for me. So I totally relate to that of how I'm just sitting here like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, Cynthia. It's like I wanna keep learning more about you because
Yeah.
you're it's very inspirational. But with that,
Can
one
I
of the
say
things that
one thing to that?
yes, go ahead.
So I do feel very lucky because like my mom had me when she was 20, so I'm 33, my mom's 53, and my mom is on a parallel healing journey. It's like really wildly crazy, but like we do a lot of the same things. And like I feel really blessed that I had this like tumultuous relationship with my mom. Like she kicked me out when I was 18. I lived on my own. We didn't speak for years. And like now she's a part of my life again. And we can talk about these things. My mom was also in a very toxic work environment. She was also fired. And like we just had a lot of similar life experiences, like personally and professionally. Um, but also like now we get to talk, we get to heal together and grow together. And like she doesn't have that with her parents. I'm very lucky that one, I get to do that at a young age and not when I'm, 53, but also that I get to experience that with both of my parents versus like my mom. She doesn't have that. Like her mom is never really changed. They have like a hot and cold relationship. Now her mom has dementia. She's not there. She's not present. My mom was one of 11 kids. My even my dad when he talks to me about his parents. So like I just feel really blessed that one, my parents want to grow and do better, but also two, that I get to heal with them and share, in this new life experience with them as well. And they're a part of my journey.
That's amazing. I got goosebumps when you said that about your mom. I love that. You see, that's like another I mean, it's like no pressure, but I'm gonna be honest. The first thing that came to mind, I was like, I can't wait to see Cynthia as a mom because you're gonna be just like applying yourself every single day of how you're like, you know, that you're doing things that you probably wish you had, and now you're able to say like, because I healed myself, I'm gonna be able to, not pass on that generational trauma. So,
Yeah. That's why
um,
honestly, that's one of the reasons why I haven't had kids or like I've been waiting because I never felt like I was able to take care of anybody else, because I couldn't even take care of myself really yet. And so I wanted to be able to like give that gift of life to somebody, when I was ready and able to.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see how much more you grow. It's like I really anyone that's listening gotta make sure to keep following Cynthia's journey because it's amazing. And we've only been chatting for a couple minutes, but
Oh, thank you.
it's whether I feel like it's a technique, I'm not sure it's a ritual, but it's prana, spelled Prana. I saw it's something that's been helping you regain that power that you've been talking about. And I'm not sure if it relates to feminine, like of how that relates to our feminine energy, but if it does, you can speak a little bit about that too. So what is prana
Yeah.
and so forth.
So prana is known as life force energy, and it's supposed to flow through all of the things in life, right? And it could also be known as like chi as well. But prana is essentially, known to Hindu or like spiritual or yogic traditions as life force energy. And so it actually is both masculine and feminine energy. And it's the balance of masculine and feminine energy because we need both. When one is heavier, when we're too feminine, like we probably have no structure, right? Where maybe but when we're too masculine, like we're too controlling, we're too rigid, we don't create. So like we actually want both. And there's a couple of different, like depending on which cultural tradition that you're learning about or you decide to follow, it's like there's yin and yang in Taoism. So yin is feminine energy, yang is like your more masculine energy. There's different things associated, light, dark. Um, and then like for the Hinduism, there's Shakti and Shiva. So Shakti is the feminine and Shiva is the masculine. So it's a balance of both. Our feminine energy, when we nurture that, like that's our creativity, that's our intuition. That's how we nurture ourselves and the world, how we care for others, how that our love, our dance, our flow. And then our masculine energy, like that's our rationality, right? Like our decision making, our action orientedness. And so, like, when we have a balance, when we cultivate our prana, which is like making sure that we do practices like breath work or meditation or yoga to get the energy flowing out of us. So we want to move like our stagnant, stuck energy out of the body and bring more life force energy into us so that we can be more in balance. So it's really more, I would say, like creating space within ourselves to have more life force flowing through us, and that would just be like the balancing of our masculine and feminine energy, and we need both.
Awesome. Thank you for the explanation. We were just intrigued about it, as it's something that you kind of showcase through your Instagram when you're doing like your yoga classes and things like that. Um, but we've talked about a lot of things, and we really appreciate like all the experiences and everything you've shared with our audience. And we can talk for days, right? Because this is a great conversation. But we're getting to the point that we want you to, if you had advice, right? Like the question that I kind of want to ask you before we go into like how can people contact you and things like that. The one thing we want to know is like, what's your advice to women that have right now unresolved trauma and do not know kind of like where to start and how to seek help? Because you know that as Latinas, we all have some sort of unresolved trauma because our parents, like they were, they grew up with this, like even with and we've talked about this in the past, but even with the like therapy thing, right? Like, oh no, like you're not supposed to go to therapy because like you're not crazy. Like they think that's for crazy people, right? So there's so many things that our culture has that it's like unresolved trauma. And then we're passing that on to like our kids and their kids and so forth. So for those women that do not know how to seek help, for that? Like, what's your recommendation? Like, where should they start?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's hard because you can't just be like, do you have unresolved trauma? Because I feel like people don't really know what that means. So it's like, I think if you feel lost, if you feel broken, if you feel unseen, if you feel like you are disconnected with yourself and you don't really know who you are, if you don't know what you're passionate about, like if you're stuck in an unhealthy relationships, right? Like an unhealthy relationship could be like, maybe it's around alcohol or drugs. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just dating people who don't treat you with love and respect or care about you. Maybe it's hanging around people who gossip all the time. Like, you have to figure out like what an unhealthy relationship looks like for you, or maybe it's just one sided where you're giving too much and somebody's just taking all the time for you. Um, like what issues are you experiencing? I would maybe start there, like what issues or things am I struggling with that I'm not happy with? Is it also like unhealthy coping mechanisms? Like what could that be? Again, like maybe I just always want to be in a relationship because I'd rather focus on somebody than focus on myself. Maybe it's I'm overeating or whatever, like I'm coping through food or whatever, like whatever that looks like for you, like, and there's something that you're struggling with that maybe isn't healthy for you, but you just keep doing it because you don't know what else to do. Like I would say that probably is your way of running from your unresolved trauma, and just start being curious, like, why am asking yourself why, like, why, why am I feeling like this? Or when this happens, like, what am I feeling? There's the feeling wheel. So we have like our core emotions that we feel, like mad, sad, tired, or whatever. And then there's like other emotions under that. So like using that. But I think just getting curious, finding whatever it is that's your thing that feels unhealthy to you or feels like it's not good for you anymore. Look up stuff about that. So, are there podcasts available? Are there books? Um, are there online coaches? Do I want to go to a therapist? Like, there are so many free resources. For me, I remember, going to Barnes and Noble, and I got the book called Euphoric because I was curious about not drinking anymore, and The Anatomy of Anxiety because I was struggling with so much debilitating anxiety and I wanted to feel better. And then I also had gotten like chakra rituals and I wanted to learn more about my body. So like start where you feel curious, I guess. And then like seek help, like I think your answers are probably going to be in your past, right? Your past is an indicator of your future normally. So what's in your past that you need to help heal and resolve within you so that you can move forward, so that thing is not holding you back. Like for me, I always ran from my past. So I really, again, I got curious and I was like, I want to learn why I am the way I am. Why am I always looking for love? I read also the book called Unattached so that I could understand how my early childhood relationships were impacting my adult relationships. So, depending on what area you need support in, just get curious. There's audio books, like there's so many things that you can do. There's free library books, like there's so many podcasts out there. Like just find information and just follow the breadcrumbs.
I love that. Thank you. And I'm glad of how you share that different sources, because sometimes we're like, oh, there's just one thing. And it's not, because I can personally say like I say, oh, this I'm gonna purchase this one course and it's gonna really make me feel full. And then it's like, I don't even take it. And then it's like, and then you go on to the next thing. So it is about, being curious and that self-awareness. So eh, I just really like how, you're transparent that it's taking a lot of different avenues to really be to where you are, that it's okay that if you in the journey of being curious, you figure out like, okay, this is not the thing that's really filling me. Let me go find something else. So with that said, I know that you offer services and that you also have your yoga classes along with your coaching services. I didn't know that you also offer HR services. So it's like you have a lot to offer. So with everything that you have to offer, and anyone that was listening, like, how can we find you? How can we contact you? Like, I know you have a couple questions on your page that people could go into and read to say like how could I be a good fit to start working with Cynthia, the healthy hot girl. So let us know, where can we find you, follow you, and start, for anyone that's interested in learning more and connecting with you.
Yeah, so I'm the Healthy Hot Girl on Instagram. There's my link tree there, so there'll be like different links, any of my events. I have two pop-ups coming up. So I'm doing the Sip and Shop with Morning Bell and Second Vibes. That's going to be a collaboration where I'm just doing sound bath meditation coming up on July 13th. I'm also doing a Women of Color Give yoga sound bath event that's going to be in Holland at the Outdoor Discovery Center on July 27th at 10 a.m. For anybody who wants to attend those two pop-ups. And then my link tree will have links to the Healthy Hot Girl podcast, the Healthy Hot Girl YouTube, and then I will also have a survey there that you can take if you want to work with me, so you can answer some questions. And then we could schedule a discovery call from there. And then for anyone who just wants to like learn more and I guess just get more information about the things that we talked about. I do have like a free webinar where I share a little bit about what unresolved trauma can look like. I share my story. And then I also share like how to identify the masks or identity in roles that you've worn that have kept you small, identify what's not yours to carry anymore, and then visualize your radiant self. So how do you begin unlocking that radiant self? So there's like a free webinar for that. I do have some additional supports, like there's a workbook that people can purchase and go through. I also have an Amazon journal. So how can you start connecting with yourself on a daily basis? Like I think all the little daily rituals add up. So all of those links will be in my link tree though. And if you're interested, yeah, feel free to reach out or visit those.
Love it. You have so many resources to offer. I know that personally I'm going to go and listen to your webinar because it's like you really got me on the roles that kept you small.
And we have to go to one of your yoga.
Yes.
Yeah, you can come to the Women of Color Give one. Come to this.
I have here July 13th and July 27th. So it's like I usually give a little, all right, ladies, thank you for chiming in. But it's like the call to action is that if you're in Grand Rapids, Holland, any area in West Michigan, is right, add it to your calendar, like right now, like pull out your phone and open up your calendar, type in July 13th and July 27th, 10 a.m., and then go to the Healthy Hot Girl Instagram so you can really see and find the registration information, because it's like Cynthia said, you have the power to choose who you give your power to, like what and who. And I would say that's like the main takeaway. Is I start figuring that out. It's like, what are you giving your power to? What are you giving it to? Who are you giving it to? And then you do have the power to do that. So it's like with that, like that really sums it up. And then it's like just go to Cynthia's link tree and listen to all the look into all the resources that she has to offer. And again, July 13th and July 27th, those summer sound baths, which I've never heard of that. So I'm very excited to be able to join one of those. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining and listening to Cynthia Peña and her journey. And like I said earlier, like keep following her because she has so much to offer to us. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for being with us. Y hasta la próxima. Chao.